Hello everyone, today we are here with the last lesson, the first chapter of our book Flamingo. Okay? The last lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Students, in the previous class, what we have learned, let us recall it. So there is a boy, Franz, okay, and he is a school-going boy, and today he got up late for the school. Why? Because Mr. Hamel, who is the teacher, who has provided the students some homework on participles. They have to learn the rules of the participles and come to the school next day while learning the rules. But this boy Franz was not done with his homework, and that's why he was afraid to go to the school and face Mr. Hamel. Why he was afraid? Because Mr. Hamel was a strict teacher regarding the studies. That's why he was afraid and he was not willing to go to the school. So as he came out of the house, the day was very bright and shiny. The people were working in their farms, the birds were chirping on the branches, and the Prussian army was drilling outside. The day was very beautiful and tempting. That's why there was an idea in Franz's mind. What was that? He thought that let us bunk the school. But anyhow he managed, he gathered the courage to face Mr. Hamel and the school, and then he headed towards the school. As he was on the way towards the school, there was a town hall, okay, and at the town hall there was a bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all the news, all the bad news was coming from that bulletin board. Whatever news was there from Berlin, it was all posted on that bulletin board only, okay? And people were today also, people were gathered around that bulletin board to know what was the news. But Franz was getting late to the school and that's why he did not pay any attention on the bulletin board and he went straight towards the school. The blacksmith called him and said that, "Hey Bob, don't get hurried, don't get worried, you are not going to be late for the school, be patient and go slow." Then Franz thought that he was making fun of him, and he did not notice what he was saying, and he rushed towards the school. Finally he reached Mr. Hamel's school, and he was very afraid that how he is going to face Mr. Hamel and all the students. He has to go before all the students to take his seat. But as he reached the school, there was a surprise waiting for him. In the usual days, when he used to reach the school, there used to be a lot of hustle bustle around the school and inside the school. The opening and closing of desks, the shouting in the market area, and the shouting of children and reading out the lessons in a loud voice. But today, for the surprise, there was pin drop silence in the school. Nobody was talking to each other and everybody was sitting quiet. There was a big surprise inside the class. As he entered the class, Mr. Hamel was standing there having his iron ruler in his hand. He was wearing the best clothes of his, a green coat with a cap on his head. Usually he used to wear these clothes on prize day or inspection day, but today he was wearing the beautiful dress and Franz was confused that what is the matter, why he is wearing all these things. But but a great surprise was waiting for him. As he looked at the back benches, he saw that there were no students sitting on the back benches, but there were the villagers sitting on the back benches. The old houser, the ex-postmaster, the ex-mayor were sitting on the back benches, and the old houser was having a primer in his hand. What is primer? Primer is a primary grammar book, and he was having that book in his hand. The class was full and silent too. Mr. Hamel was there, and as Mr. Hamel saw Franz on the door, he welcomed him and said, "Come in, Franz, we were going to start without you only, so come fast and have your seat." Franz took his seat and sat down. Now Mr. Hamel mounted his chair and then announced the news. What was the news? The news was that there was a news from Berlin. There was an order from Berlin headquarters that there will be no more French classes in Alsace and Lorraine. Instead of French, German will be taught from the next day. Mr. Hamel has to leave the country and a new German teacher will arrive the next day to continue the German class. Listening this, Franz felt a thunderclap. This was a huge surprise for him, a bad news for him. Before today, he was not even interested to look at the books. He was not keen to learn the lessons. But by listening Mr. Hamel's word, he was thinking that why he had wasted all the time seeking for the eggs of the bird and moving here and there and enjoying all the stuffs except the studies. He was feeling very regret losing the time. He was feeling very regret not giving the time to the studies and the lessons. He was thinking that he don't even know anything about he don't know anything about the French language. He don't know how to read, how to write his mother tongue, and from the next day he will be not able to learn his mother tongue because it is going to be banned. He has to learn German. How shameful was this that being a Frenchman, he don't know anything about French. Now it was all clear to Franz that why Mr. Hamel was wearing such a nice dress. He was doing so because he wanted to give a farewell, he wanted to give a tribute to his mother tongue, French language, and the villagers also were sitting in the class attending the last lesson because they wanted to provide a tribute to Mr. Hamel, who was serving his country and his mother tongue for the last 40 years. He was such a great man, he was such a great teacher, and that's why people were feeling very sorry that why they didn't attend any class of his. And that's why they were today here in the class to provide a tribute to Mr. Hamel as well as their mother tongue. While Franz was thinking all about these things, so he suddenly heard his name. Mr. Hamel called his name. He stood up and Mr. Hamel asked him the questions regarding participles. He thought that he will answer in a full confidence and he will not make any mistake. But as he stood up and was to speak, he made the mistake. He was feeling very sorry and regret, but what to do? Mr. Hamel did not scold Franz. Mr. Hamel, for his surprise, Mr. Hamel did not scold Franz for his mistake. He said that we are so dumb, we are so irregular about our work that we think that we have plenty of time. We will do it tomorrow, we will do it next day, and we refuse to do our work on time. Now see what we have. We have nothing left with us. From tomorrow there will be no French class. From tomorrow you are not able to speak your language. From tomorrow you are not going to learn the lessons of French. You don't have any time left with you. Look what we have done with us. It is so shameful that we are Frenchmen and we don't know about how to write and how to learn French language. While saying all these things, he said that, little Franz, this is not your mistake only. Your parents are responsible for this. They send you to the farm and mills to earn more money. I am also as much responsible as your parents are. I also send you to water the plants instead of learning the language, and I provided you holiday while I was there for fishing. I am also equally responsible for all these things. I am sorry, little Franz, said Mr. M. Hamel to Franz. Everyone was feeling very sad and everyone was unhappy for whatever was going on today. After saying all these things, Mr. Hamel glorifies his mother tongue French language. He said that French is the most beautiful language in the entire world, and he also added that if you are enslaved, the only thing is the key for the prison, and that is the knowledge of your mother tongue, the knowledge of your own language. If you know your language, you can get out of the prison, he said regarding the French language. Then Mr. Hamel took out a book and started teaching a lesson. Today a very different thing happened. Today Franz was getting each and every word very clearly in his mind. This never happened before in the previous classes, but today each and everything, whatever Mr. Hamel was teaching, it was all going direct inside his mind. Franz was unable that why is this happening. Either he was so attentive in today's class or Mr. Hamel was teaching so nicely today. He was confused what is the actual matter. But the result was only that whatever Mr. Hamel was teaching today, each and everything was clear to Franz. Then after teaching there was some writing work. While they were writing in the new copies, Franz heard the singing of pigeons, and after hearing that, Franz was thinking one thing. He started thinking that will they make these pigeons sing in German too? This means that nobody can enslave your language, nobody can enslave your mother tongue. If you know the language better, nobody can snatch it from you. You can be enslaved, but not your tongue, not your language. It is not possible to do for anyone. Then after all these things happened, Franz saw that Mr. Hamel was sitting on the chair. He was sitting there motionless, looking outside the window. And he was looking very much pale. He was looking very, very sad. Because he served for his country for the 40 years. He served for his language. He served for his mother tongue for the last 40 years. And today he was not able to save his mother tongue. And that's why he was feeling very sorry for that. That's why he was feeling very sad and upset. Franz can see it and feel it very, very clearly. There was packing going inside Mr. Hammel's house because they have to leave the country for the next day. Because they have to leave the country on the next day. After that, Mr. M. Hammel stood from his chair, and today he was looking very tall. He wanted to say something, but he was choked. The word didn't come out of his mouth. He refused to say anything, and he turned toward the board and wrote something on the board instead of saying anything. He wrote there, "Vive la France," means long live France, and then said in a very heavy tone, "Class is dismissed." That's all. That was the story, the last lesson. Hope it is all clear to you. Thank you. Students, this story, the last lesson by Alphonse Daudet, leaves us with a question. Can you just imagine what will happen if you are stopped by using your language? Whatever language we use, if we are said that you must not use this language or your language is banned from the next day, what will happen? What will we feel? It is very difficult, it is merely impossible for us to live without our language, without our mother tongue. That's why nobody should enslave the language. Nobody should stop the language to be spoken. Thank you.